Thank you. Right, good evening, everybody. Council Leader Dave Stewart speaking, Chair of this evening's meeting of the Isle of Wight Council Cabinet on Thursday, the 11th of February. The very hefty content of the agenda has been circulated, and ironically, it has over 600 pages in the document. So it is a heavy agenda if you weigh it. However, as I know that members have read the contents in some depth and are familiar with the content, I hope we can move fairly swiftly through the agenda. I can point out to members who would have been present anyway that at the scrutiny meeting on Tuesday, there were no specific recommendations coming forward that we need to add to any agenda item, although they made a lot of comments and observations. So I'm going to move now to item 1 on the agenda, which is the minutes, pages 5 and 6 to 16. If members happy to confirm that's a true record of the minutes from the meeting of the last meeting of the 14th of January. You can just unmute and confirm.
Yeah, I'll propose those.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you,
That's fine.
agreed. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Brian here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. That's recorded. Item 2 is declaration of interest. If members have any declaration of interest to make that they have not already disclosed as part of their members' record, now is the time to say. Okay, that's good. Thank you. I move on to item 3, which is public questions. I'm not aware of any public questions that have been submitted in accordance with the arrangements, and therefore I shall just pass on to item 4. Now, item 4 is my announcements. I only have one particular announcement to make to this evening, which is in relation to the information received in the last couple of days regarding the island deal. I'm pleased to announce the recognition from government in the forthcoming funding settlement papers of an allocation of £50,000 for a study of our submission of our evidence in respect of an island deal. This is the first time I am aware of that a government has publicly recognised a case submitted from a local authority in respect of our unique island case, and by inference will enable the case to be properly made and validated and considered as part of a future funding formula. Now, this has been a joint effort between the Conservative-led administration, our Island Conservative MP Bob Seeley, and the Conservative government, and I'm now more confident that our case will be ratified and we can then expect recommendations to be made on our future funding entitlement under the levelling up agenda. So I just wanted to get that on the record that we've taken that step forward in the process. I'm now going to move to item 5, which is the progress on the Housing Strategy Action Plan. And I believe, Councillor Abraham, you're going to deal with that for us. And you need to unmute.
Thank you, Leader. This is the report that brought to us. It's the interim one for the housing strategy that was only signed off in October, and I'm pleased to say that already of the 48 existing action plans for year 1, 40 have already been achieved, 7 are not yet fully achieved to date, and 1 has not yet been achieved in the projected timescale, but delivery is due in the annual review date, which is in November 2021. The highlights include, if you remember, Leader, when we came into power back in 2017, one of our key objectives was to build houses, and we've actually had a low base over the last 2 or 3 years, but in the last year we've actually delivered 100 affordable homes, and that's not affordable homes in the sense of the 30% affordable of new builds, market value new builds. This is actually for people that need assistance with their housing. We also will be looking to build another 300 homes in the next 2 years. So that we believe is quite good. We also continue a service such as regulation of the private sector landlords. That are people that who are falling short to their tenants. We have powers to enforce, and we are taking a thing to actually do that. And we are looking to bring back homes back into use as well. We've attracted funding and commissioned a new homeless service and building a better long-term homeless facility at Barton that is designed to be COVID safe. And no doubt Councillor Morsdale might wish to pick up and say a few words about that, how it's progressing. We've delivered the first purpose-built extra care housing scheme on the island at Ryde Village, new quality affordable homes at Shalfleet, and started on site at Branston Farm, our mixed employment and housing site, which is on a council site. And I certainly believe that it will be seen as an innovative approach to housing for young people who haven't been able to get a foot onto the ladder. We are also looking at putting allotments and starter units on that site. So that is a great success, I believe. The other thing that we have been able to do, as you know, we've had a problem with affordability gap. The affordability gap for rented housing on the island is about 60% of market rates. We've been making a case to government. We've lobbied hard with government, and they have now accepted the case that we have a case on the island. We've now been included on the list that will bring more money to housing associations on the island, and I think we can be proud of our success in doing this. It's not it's only the start. It's not. It's certainly not getting where we want to be or where we need to be. There are a lot of people on the island who are struggling to find anywhere to live. It's something that does need to be looked at and help more people. But it's our vision to enable everyone living on the island to have a place they can call home. And I move the recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Abraham. So the recommendation is that Cabinet notes the update report and progress made as at Appendix 1. And I am happy that's seconded. Who's seconding that?
Yeah,
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you. Chief Inspector, the Chief Executive rightly reminds me that I should give any other member that's on the call, I've only seen one, who may wish to ask a question, the opportunity to ask a question. Are there any questions from any other member on the virtual call? You can indicate in the chat box or whatever. Okay, I don't have any questions. Could members now indicate whether they approve for that to be noted? Verbal will be okay on this occasion. Only noting. I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
I'm happy as well.
Thank you. That's very good.
Happy leader.
Thank you very much.
Chairman. Agreed.
Well, we're going to keep Councillor Abraham in the hot seat shortly, because we now have a motion that was referred from full council. It can be seen at pages 29 to 32. This was a matter we've discussed prior to this meeting, following the fact it was referred from full council. Councillor Abraham, do you just want to briefly introduce that motion?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I just really basically move the recommendation. I take it that everybody will have read the motion that came to full council, and I would just point out that later on it will actually we can sort of talk about it at the time we're doing the island planning strategy. So I move the recommendation, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, and I acknowledge the information from Councillor Lilly, who kept me updated on this, and that he was happy with the report. I'll read the recommendation. It says option B, to inform the mover of the council motion that the issues raised in the motion, insofar as they are relevant to the functions of the council, are taken into account in the preparation of the appropriate council strategies, particularly the climate and environment strategy and the island planning strategy. Would members indicate if they are happy and will support that recommendation, please?
Yeah,
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, great.
Okay,
Supported.
just turning to the chief executive, is there anything else I need to do, or are we happy to take that vote as a recommendation supported?
Chairman, I think it would be more sense and make more sense to those watching if we could do it by roll call, please.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
can do that. Bear with me a few seconds. So if you put your mics on, members, I'll just do a roll call. Councillor Peace.
Agreed.
Councillor Ward.
Agreed.
Councillor Brading.
Agreed.
Councillor Mosdell.
Agreed.
Councillor Whittle.
In favour.
Councillor Abraham.
Agree.
Councillor Hastings.
Agreed.
Councillor Tyndall.
Agreed.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Agreed.
And I agree as well. So that's a unanimous vote on that item. Thank you, Councillor Abraham. I'm moving now to, I think we have, it's really Councillor Mosdell, but in through Councillor Mosdell, the public health report. Councillor Moore, do you want to lead and then invite the officer if necessary?
Thank you, Leader. I'm delighted to introduce Simon Bryant, our Director of Public Health for the Isle of Wight, who will present his second annual report to Cabinet ahead of its final publication. As you're aware, the Director of Public Health has a statutory duty to produce an annual report on the health of the Isle of Wight population, with a further requirement on the Council to publish this report. This presents an opportunity for the Director of Public Health to highlight to us as a Cabinet and more widely to our partners and residents specific public health issues of concern. It also enables a light to be shone on the work already underway to address these issues, as well as making recommendations on how the public's health and well-being can be further improved. This has been an extraordinary year, transformed by the impact of COVID-19 and the work to prevent and contain the spread of coronavirus. However, it has also underlined the importance of good health, which can impact on all our lives and has brought sharply into focus the inequalities and vulnerabilities which exist within our island communities. Across all age groups, we know that mental health and well-being of individuals has been adversely affected by the pandemic, national restrictions, bereavements and loss of livelihoods. This is a key priority for us, and there are a number of actions in progress to support people. A mental health alliance has been set up to ensure coordinated partnership, work on prevention and early intervention for mental health and well-being on the island. It is co-chaired between Public Health and the Clinical Commissioning Group. The alliance has identified 3 priorities for focus work. Firstly, community mental health and resilience. Secondly, training and upskilling. And thirdly, comms and information. However, as we learn more about the virus, and Simon will explain this further, it is now recognised that being overweight or living with obesity puts individuals at greater risk of serious harm from COVID-19 in comparison to the rest of the population. With nearly 2/3 of adults living on the Isle of Wight being overweight, there is an even greater urgency to tackle this, especially as periods of national restrictions will also have further impacted on people's weight. Many people already know that what should be doing to achieve a healthy weight, but it can be a real struggle to put this into practice. This is primarily because we live in an environment that encourages us to eat too many calories while remaining physically inactive. Individual behaviours and healthcare services can only go so far in confronting the problem, and this year's report entitled Tackling Environmental Factors is vital to address obesity on the Isle of Wight. It looks at the importance these factors play in tackling excess weight within our communities. The report explores a wide range of environmental factors, including transport, planning, and the spaces and places where we live and learn. It also showcases innovations where the Isle of Wight is already making good progress and provides clear recommendations for what more we and our partners can do to address obesity. I'd like Cabinet to note that the recommendation for this is that we note the report of the Director of Public Health and its subsequent publication on the Council's web pages. And I would now like to hand over to Simon Bryant, Director of Public Health, not just the Director of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
So Simon Bryant, that's a good introduction, isn't it?
So many thanks, Councillor Mosdale and Leader. It's great to be here to be able to present my report to the Isle of Wight Cabinet. I think this year our worlds have been transformed by the COVID pandemic, and who would have thought that? But it's also true that we need to think about other public health issues, and I'm absolutely delighted to present this report to you, as Councillor Mosdale said, just ahead of final publication. We know that many people know what they should be doing to achieve a healthy weight, but it's a real struggle. So thinking about the environment and the factors that can have a greater impact on our excess weight is a really key public health initiative that we need to take forward. So this report highlights some of those factors, and I want to thank the team who've really helped pull that together. The report highlights a number of recommendations, thinking about how we refocus following COVID on risk factors for COVID, such as excess weight. Thinking about how we think about a transforming travel programme and how we are working with recovery to encourage more walking and cycling. Focusing on things around shaping of places, so place and health are so keenly connected together. Done a lot of work on the Sugar Smart programme and how we then further broaden that out into their whole system approach for obesity. Furthermore, working with our education and schools to roll out their Peach programme, which is a really strong programme on the island about supporting education settings to improve health. And finally, the Council commissions the 0 to 19 Health Hastings School Nursing Service, and we'll continue to work collaboratively with that programme to improve health and well-being. The report really highlights some of those areas, as Councillor Mosdale set out in each chapter, around where the environment can shape our food environments, where we can shape our active environments, think about children and young people and how they can play and the impact there. And finally, the really strong partnerships required with island agencies, statutory, voluntary and others to improve the health of the population, particularly think about healthy weight. So I do commend this report to you, and I'm delighted to be able to present this, my second annual report, my first formally as since being appointed formally as Director of Public Health. Many thanks, Leader.
Thank you, Simon, and just to thank you and Claire Mosdell for the work you've already continuing in relation to mental health and well-being. Claire is our champion on this area. Will be taking on the oversight of what is going to be a very interesting project, bearing in mind all the points you've raised in your report and the reality of life that we know that many people are suffering from what I call COVID depression, and we'll be looking for that support and guidance as we go forward. So can I thank you for that as well? Any cabinet member wish to comment or speak on this report? Okay, thank you. And does any other member have a question to ask about this report before I ask the cabinet to respond? Okay, nobody's indicated. So members, can you just please, we're asking to be noting the report of the Director of Public Health. It's not a vote for or against, but just noting, and I'll just do the roll call as before, just to make sure that the public are aware that we are happy to note this report. Councillor, please.
Yeah, approved, Leader.
Councillor Ward.
Approved.
Councillor Brading.
Yes, approved. Thank you, Simon.
Councillor Mosdell.
Noted. Thank you.
Councillor Whittle.
Support.
Councillor Abraham.
Noted.
Councillor Hastings.
Good report. Supported.
Councillor Tyndall.
Supported.
And Councillor
Noted.
Hutchinson.
Noted.
And I too note it and thank those members for their work in that area. I move now to item 8, which is the parking delivery plan. Probably one of the most sizable documents we've got in the papers today. And I'll invite Councillor Ian Ward, our lead member for Transport and Infrastructure, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Leader. Before I go into my introduction, I'd like to publicly thank the team from Wight Young Green, and especially our officers who added their experience and local knowledge to the team's information base. Right, the parking delivery plan, quite clearly, this paper looks to the future and to meet the perceived parking demand. The team will asked to look at several or many aspects actually, but I've highlighted some here. An outcome that underpins all the following is to balance the revenue potential to the council for car parking activities against the economic impact of parking charges and parking policies. And I think that's a very clear statement, because it affects so many aspects of our life and business. Also, the identification of opportunities to increase income generated through council operated provision complete with estimates. The identification and mapping of all parking provision, both public and private, to include recording capacity and usage. Delivery of an assessment of current and future demands for parking in these areas. And finally, the identification of locations for new off-street parking opportunities across the island that will meet both current and predicted future demand. This should include the potential for multi-storey car parking and the opportunities for rationalisation of any surplus flat parking redevelopment. The plan also has to support our regeneration strategy, our developing local transport plan, and of course our draft planning strategy. This is very comprehensive and talks clearly about our current arrangements and makes recommendations for the future. Where are we now? There we go. Has any member got any questions at this stage?
Not a question, Leader, but a comment, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, I have to say, but prompted by Councillor Ward saying we have to make provision for appropriate numbers of car parks. Not everyone will have seen the document from Wight Young Green. Incredibly comprehensive, 390 pages of it, which is the size of a novel, but very, very detailed. One thing I did pick out from it, and this is why it's somewhat tongue-in-cheek, is that since we last did this exercise, it's been noted that there are something like 10,000 extra cars on the island, which means they're now about 1.3 cars per household. So the fact that parking charges have been increased doesn't seem to have deterred people from buying more cars. Now, 10,000 cars, if you line them up end to end, is a 30-mile row of cars. So I'm quite wondering how we're going to cope with the number of car parks that will be needed if over the next 20 odd years we have a similar increase. I'm not expecting a serious answer on that, Ian, because I know it's almost impossible.
Okay, Councillor Stewart, thank you for your question. At present, we are not planning to build any more car parks. In fact, I think you'll find that the council's strategy is to reduce car usage. And I think our recent experience with the COVID shutdown shows that people can work from home. And I think that will be a trend. It may not be at the level it is now, but I'm sure it will be greater than it used to be. So hopefully that will reduce car usage and relieve the need for more car parks. Hopefully, we should see. You know, at this point, I'd say, you know, this paper is a paper for taking forward to actually produce our parking plan. It is a live document, if I can use that term, and is flexible. So we will we'll use it to adapt to the situations as they develop. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. And I know Councillor Peace will have a little bit to say about working from home, kind of in his own way, in due course. So that's useful. Are there any other questions or comments from members? Otherwise, so Councillor Hastings.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader. Just waiting for that to move across if it's going to do so.
Yep, just wait a few seconds. I'll tell you when you're live now.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to really echo what Councillor Ward has said. I sat on the parking project board alongside him, and the amount of work that officers have put into this, and Wight Young Green as well. It's been a long process, a hard process, and what they've produced is something amazing. And of course, it will be a flexible piece going forward. So thank them very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hastings. And that day does remind me that all members received a briefing on this paper, or the papers, at some length, and I'm grateful to officers for organising that for all members. So what we're asked on this one is a recommendation that the Cabinet adopts option 1, which is to adopt the draft parking delivery plan attached to Appendix 4, taking note of the consultation, and produce and be published the final plan in due course. That's what Councillor Ward is proposing. Does he have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you. Who was that, Councillor Abraham?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I'll just go through the vote process that we did before. Bear with me a few seconds. Councillor Peace.
Approved.
Councillor Ward.
Agreed.
Councillor Brading.
Agreed.
Councillor Mosdell.
Agreed.
Councillor Whittle.
Agreed.
Councillor Abraham.
Agree.
Councillor Hastings.
Agreed.
Councillor Tyndall.
Agreed.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Agreed.
And I agree as well. Thank you for that, members. I'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the quarterly performance report for Q3. Again, the papers are at page 85 to 164, have been circulated. I'm aware that members have read them. And I'll ask Councillor Tyndall if he would give us a presentation, please.
Okay,
Wait,
you can hear me?
Yep, just wait a few seconds so you'll go live and I'll tell you.
Okay.
You're now live.
Okay. Thank you very much, Leader. This report is very much a snapshot and a historic record of the Council's activities during the period from September to December 2020. And para 1 of the report outlines what this area covers. I will not go through the report in detail, as each of the Cabinet members know their particular areas and the activities which they have done between September and December. But all I will note is, even since December, there has been many more changes and in activity since then. Right, a couple of areas I just would like to highlight, and one is the strategic risks register areas, and if you go through it, you'll note that none of them have changed except one, and this one is the lack of financial resource and the ability to deliver the council's in-year budget strategy. This risk score has actually been reduced, so that must show that as a council we're doing the right job as regards our financial strategy. The second area, very simply, is my area of resources, and I'd just like to comment on the contact centre, who have managed to carry on their good work in answering the phones at a tremendously good rate. It said average answer time was the highest in November. It peaked at 51 seconds, still within the target of 60 seconds. I think that and all the other work they're doing at the same time needs to be highlighted. Other than that, unless there's anybody who wants to ask me any questions about anything, I think I'll ask to go to the recommendation, if I may.
I'll just check if any members have got any comments. Any members have a comment on the report? Councillor Ward? No, just wait a few seconds till we go live. You're now live.
Okay. I think we all appreciate that the council is in is facing a difficult financial period. But I'm particularly pleased to see that over £1 million has been put into the highways budget for highways improvements. There are regular requests from residents and towns and parish councils for this task to be done, that task to be done. And I think you'll all remember we ended up with a huge list of outstanding requests that we could never hope to complete. That list we cut down with the help of the town and parish councils to a manageable list. And this money will go some way towards tackling those priorities. Not all of them, Brian, but if you could give us some more next year, that'd be good.
You know the standard response.
Thank you, gentlemen. If I just one observation from me, which comes under the financial element of the corporate performance review, and that is the reference around savings against budget in treasury management, which is £1.7 million. It's quite a significant figure, but the reason I raise it is that our treasury management team, led by Joe Thistlewood, are probably some of the unsung heroes of what goes on in the council. They work quietly behind the scene, managing what they can, and they always seem to come up with an exceptionally positive outcome. So just wanted to get on record that point at page 9466. So thank you for that. Is there any other questions from any other member on the call? I think Barry Abraham, are you indicating?
No, not me. No.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Okay, well in that case, if I just refer to the recommendation, which is that the Cabinet approves the performance and finance report quarter ended 31st December 2020, and that the priority report detailed together with the council's financial position as set out in the appendices is approved. That's Councillor Tyndall was putting that forward. Does he have a seconder?
I would second that, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchinson. And again, I will just go through the roll, if you can bear with me a few seconds. Councillor Peace.
Approved.
Councillor Ward.
Agreed.
Councillor Brading.
Agreed.
Councillor Mosdell.
Agreed.
Councillor Whittle.
Agreed.
Councillor Abraham.
Agree.
Councillor Hastings.
Agreed.
Councillor Tyndall.
Agreed.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Agreed.
And myself also agreed. Thank you, Brian, for that. I move now to item 10, which is the budget and council tax setting 21-22 and future year forecast shown in the papers at pages 165 to 228. And I'd ask Councillor Hutchinson if he would introduce this particular item.
Thank you, Leader.
Just give us a few seconds so we go live. Okay, you're not showing. You're live now.
Yeah, it's just come up. Yeah, thank you, Leader. Obviously, I don't need to go through with Cabinet colleagues the detail of the budget, because we all, together with our respective lead chief officers, have put in hundreds of hours to produce this budget. As we know, it is one of the most difficult budgets, probably the most difficult budget that this administration has had to deal with, and it's the 5th budget that we've produced. That is because it has 3 components instead of the usual 2. We normally deal with the revenue budget and the capital budget, but this time we've had the additional COVID budgets. And it's worth pointing out that in one way or another, we've had £139 million worth of support from government for the tax reliefs and the grants that we have been able to give out. And I'm delighted to say that our finance people, whom Leader you've already quite properly recognised, those staff supplemented by other redeployed staff have done a tremendous job in getting out those grants and reliefs very, very swiftly, and I'm told more swiftly than our neighbouring councils. So that's good news. One of the major issues that we had with the current year's budget, of course, was the famous black hole, which started off at about 19 millions. With some government support on that, we got it down to 10, and gradually we've been reducing it over the last few months to the point where we are forecast to be in balance by the end of the financial year. In fact, very slightly better than balance. We might have about £1 million or so in hand. That is a tiny proportion of our total budget, of course. The other key things about the future budget, of course, that most people are already aware of, has been widely reported in the press, is that as well as the 2% that we shall take to cover our increasing costs, including inflation, we've agreed that it's absolutely essential we raise the additional 3% to help the increasing demand on adult social care, and the whole of that 3% will go in that direction. Budget also allows us to build in a very small amount of resilience. We will try to add a little bit to our reserves, which have been so useful in the last year. I'm very glad that we were able to build up a very small reserve, which we've used to help us cope with the pandemic. It is tiny in future years, but we have, in addition to our small general reserve, put aside 14.2 million over the next 3 years to help us with the likely increased costs stemming from the COVID pandemic. Now, 14.2 million sounds a lot of, well, it is a lot of money, but as you've said, Leader, and as I've pointed out to Cabinet before, it's 14.2 millions in a spend over the next over the next 3 years of something like 1.2 billion pounds. So the likelihood is that we shall use up most of that money in year one. So obviously the detail of the budget and any alternative budgets coming forward will be thoroughly discussed at the forthcoming full council meeting. But in the meantime, I would recommend to colleagues that the report and the recommendations approving the budget I'd like to put them forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hutchinson, and thank you for all your work on this particular budget, and indeed to all the officers who I know are on this call for their portfolio work with their respective members. Are there any specific comments from members or questions from members on the of the Cabinet? I actually echo what Councillor Hutchinson said. I think we've lived this for months and months now to get to this complex position we are in. So it doesn't surprise me because we all know where we are with it. So thank you for that. Are there any questions from any member on the call? Thank you. I've just got one observation to make. I'm going to read out the recommendations, but I'll just highlight at B, just in relation to the particular item, that, as always, a recommendation like that is in consultation with the leader, but I'll read it through. So, recommendations. It is recommended that the Cabinet endorse the following. The recommendations to the Council set out below. It is recommended that the Council approve the following: the revised revenue budget for the financial year 2021 and the revenue budget for the financial year 21-22 as set out in the General Fund Summary (brackets Appendix 1 close brackets), which includes the establishment of a COVID-19 fund estimated at 14.2 million, a revenue contribution to capital of 2 million, and a contribution to the transformation reserve of 1 million. B, a variation arising from the local government financial settlement 21-22 or any further savings made in 2021 arising at the year end after allowing for specific carry forward requests be transferred to the I've lost the line there. Be transferred to the COVID-19 fund, transformation reserves, revenue reserve for capital and general reserves, with the level of each being transferred determined by the Section 151 officer in consultation with the leader. That the level of council tax be increased by 1.99% for general purposes in accordance with the referendum threshold, which is detailed in the papers, for 21-22 announced by the government as calculated in Appendix 2, that the level of council tax be increased by a further 3% beyond the referendum threshold as calculated in Appendix 2 to take advantage of the flexibility offered by government to implement a social care precept, and that in accordance with the conditions of that flexibility, the full amount of the associated sum generated of £2,558,500 is passported direct to adult social care. That the amount set out in Appendix 2 be now calculated by the Council for the financial year 21-22 in accordance with Section 31 and Sections 34 to 36 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992, and that the Section 151 officer be given delegated authority to implement any variation to the overall level of council tax arising from the financial notification of the Hampshire Police and Crime Commissioner, the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Authority, and the Parish and Town Council precepts, and amend the calculations set out in Appendix 2 accordingly. And then G, that the savings proposal for each portfolio amounting in total to £3.5 million for 21-22 and continuing into future years as set out in the next page. And I think hopefully I have read all the recommendations. Just double checking. Yes, I think so. And the Section 151 also be delegate authority to know each source of finance is used to fund the overall capital programme and alter the overall mix of financing as necessary to maximise the flexibility of capital resources used and minimise the ongoing costs of borrowing to the council. And then O, that the Section 151 officer, in consultation with the leader of the council, be given delegated authority to release capital resources held back for any contingent items that might arise, and also for any match funding requirements that may be required of the council in order to secure additional external funding, for example, bids for funding from government or from the Solid Local Enterprise Partnership. Now, I think I've covered all the recommendations. They're quite lengthy. I'm worried I haven't, but we'll
Chairman, just in case you haven't, Leader, you could say we endorse the recommendations as set out in the report.
Oh, I could say that, actually. I think I will say that at this point, if any I've missed. I want to make sure we're right. As you said, I wanted to be absolutely clear on the budget, but as your wisdom strikes regularly, Councillor Hutchinson, once again it does. So on that basis,
Chairman,
I would second your proposal.
Sorry, Chairman, it is the Chief Executive.
Yeah.
Sorry. So just so that we're absolutely clear, it's the recommendations as set out in the paper.
Yeah.
That we are proposing.
In the paper, and as I referred to,
That's right.
there's a couple of references to the leader role. I think one at O and one at B.
Yeah, I think we all know what we're looking at.
Yeah, I'm not going to read all the others out on that basis, but they are clearly laid out as in the paper. Right, let me turn to the list of members. And are there any members that asked this question? Double checking. Any members wish to comment on the paper? I don't think there were any. I just want to be fair. No, okay, thank you. Then I'll do the Cole portfolio members. Gary Peace, Councillor Peace.
Approved, Leader.
Councillor Ward.
Agreed.
Councillor Brading.
Agreed.
Councillor Mosdell.
Agreed.
Councillor Whittle,
In favour.
Councillor Abraham,
Agree.
Councillor Hastings,
Agreed.
Councillor Tyndall,
Agreed.
Councillor Hutchinson,
Agreed.
myself agreed. Right. Okay, I'm going to move to item 11, which is Cabinet Member announcements. And following the list I've just read, I'll now go back to the Cabinet members and ask them if they have any announcements. When you do speak, if you could just pause so that the officers are able to put the live reference on to you. And I'll start with Councillor Gary Peace.
Thank you, Leader.
Wait a second. Well, you're live. You're not live yet. Yes, you're live.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I'm going to talk about IT first, and I thought it's probably useful to have some facts and figures around what the council has actually been doing to deliver essential services that many people don't see behind, because it's all behind the scenes during this pandemic. And if it's not escaped anyone's attention, there's been a dramatic change in the way we are all working from home, etc., etc. So I'm going to give some statistics by way of illustration. So we've had 446 deliveries of additional ICT equipment into staff homes to enable home working. In the 90 days prior to March 23rd, 2020, the Isle of Wight Council held 800 Teams meetings. And for anyone who doesn't understand what Teams are, it's the same as Zoom. And in the last 90 days, we've actually conducted 22,819 Teams meetings. So a massive increase in the sort of online work that we're all doing. And of those 22,000 odd meetings, 487 of them were with external parties. So guests external to the Isle of Wight Council. It's probably worth noting at this stage that the only reason we've been able to do this is because of this Conservative administration's careful stewardship of our budget and of our investments in ICT infrastructure, transformation, and in replacement of technology. Now, without this foresight and without this planning, and this goes in a great way towards the officers, and I will single out Roger Brown here for particular attention, because as head of IT, I think he's done an absolutely sterling job in making sure that we've all been able to work. But without this foresight, things would be very, very different now, and we would not be able to deliver the services that we are. Moving on to the website, we've got the new website project. It continues. It has been delayed because our IT staff have all been doing business as usual work, but we've now got a demonstration site set up and completed, and we've got a beta or a /testing site that will follow on. But all of that depends on COVID, and it depends on having the sufficient resources available, but we are working at a timetable for that. We've also completed a cybersecurity risk review, and this follows on from, and you may or may not have seen in the media, we had a local authority up on the mainland that was hit by a cyber attack and various other high profile instances and security breaches in the last year or so. Work is ongoing to enhance our security posture through a combination of measures in line with best practice guidelines for the industry. So that's cybersecurity, digital transformation as a whole. If we talk about connectivity and our Gigabit Island project, which is being led by Wight Fibre, again, there's been a slowdown because of COVID, but actually we're on schedule for every part of the island being connected by gigabit internet speeds by 2023. Now, this is a once in a generation commercial investment, and it will make this island one of the world's most connected. But importantly, as well as being one of the most connected islands in the world, we're also going to have some of the highest internet speeds available. And that is an absolute must in a digital economy, in an information driven economy. And it's essential for our recovery from COVID. And it also fits with our digitalisation strategy, which looks at digital skills, economic growth, public services. And lastly on that, I think I mentioned this previously, but we've also still got Cows Week. They are part of a £28 million government fund to trial innovative uses of 5G. So there's a whole host of digital transformation pieces and work going on. If I move now on to community safety, the Violent Crime Reduction Unit continues to work, and we expect confirmation for funding for 21 and 22 budgets to come through shortly from the Home Office. Domestic violence, domestic abuse, we've now received a capacity building fund to take account of forthcoming changes in legislation which are going to happen in April. Now this fund will enable us to for an independent review of domestic abuse functions on the Isle of Wight, along with governance, commissioning and accommodation. Next, we've got environmental health. With environmental health, the primary focus has been on response and recovery. Obviously, the priority at the moment is looking at supermarkets, retail, the accommodation sector, public spaces and outbreaks in local authority regulated premises. But there's really been some excellent joint work that's also gone on with the police with regard to investigation and enforcement. And again, looking at some figures, since the start of the pandemic, the team have actually dealt with 1,500 complaints and inquiries into the service. Coming shortly, starting on the 24th of February, we're going to be starting up our business webinars and our Zoom sessions for business again, all around COVID, to provide some guidance around self-isolation, business grants, lateral flow tests, and dealing with outbreaks. They were really successful in the first webinar, in the first lockdown. So we're looking to continue those, as I say, 24th of February, and people will be able to register on the website. Brexit Work, there's been some priority work going around fishing vessels that's been undertaken, and business as usual work has been put on hold to allow us to deal with COVID and these other things that I've mentioned. We've also had a bit of focus in the last few months around avian flu, so it's all come at once. But yes, we have got avian flu on the island, or actually we had it. There's been no further cases on the island, but we've got the cordon is still in place at the lake in Ryde for the time being. Moving now on to licensing, there's been a focus on animal establishment licensing, which has changed in the last year. As well, we've been providing support for the licensing sector around COVID matters. We've also been looking at the taxi sector to make sure that taxis can operate in a COVID safe fashion. And it would be remiss of me not to mention the event season that is looming. We're awaiting further guidance from government on what we can do and can't do around large scale events, so hold that space. Last couple of areas of my portfolio, trading standards. So as part of the Isle of Wight Against Scams partnership, using our network to create an awareness of a number of local and national scams that are going around at the moment. Some of them are obviously COVID related. And actually something came to my attention today through yourself, Chair. One of our Isle of Wight residents received an aggressive recorded phone call telling that resident that they were being investigated by the HMRC for fraud. And if they did not select number 1 on the phone, that the police would be coming to knock on the door and arrest them. It was an intimidating call, it was an aggressive call, and it would easily scare someone, maybe elderly or someone who wasn't quite switched on as this particular victim, into pressing those numbers and falling for the scam and probably losing an awful lot of money. So let's be clear, any such call is a scam, should not be entertained. HMRC will never ever use those sorts of tactics, and actually neither with any other reputable organisation, so it should be ignored. And then lastly, another shout out to my crematorium and bereavement staff. So the staff are continuing with their really sterling efforts to maintain what really is a sensitive and important service for us all. They're working in bubbles to ensure resilience, and I'm also pleased to announce that as frontline staff, with a particularly difficult circumstance in the way in the work they do, they have all had or in the process of getting their vaccinations, which I'm really pleased about. And again, it just goes to show that we are doing all we can to protect all of our staff in the Isle of Wight Council. And my thanks to everybody that comes under my portfolio. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for a very comprehensive and informative briefing. I'll turn now to Councillor Ward.
There we go.
Just wait a few seconds. I'll tell you when you're live. Just waiting for officers to adjust so that you're live. You're now live.
Okay, thank you, Leader. I've got a couple of points actually. After the successful reconstruction of the St Mary's Junction, we are now moving on to phase 2 of the Newport traffic plan. We are now planning the reconfiguration of St George's Way, and if people are not sure where that is, that's the road that runs beside Matalan and the cinema. The plan is to improve the traffic flow, both going onto Coppins Bridge roundabout and coming off again. There is a quite a significant diversion, but basically goes around Marks and Spencer's and Morrison's. But we don't think that that's really going to cause much problem at all. It might even be a good diversion, if I could put it that way. Hopefully we will get it done summer to early autumn, and it should be completed by then. If we don't have it, that's if we don't have any problems with utility companies and so on and so forth. The second one, we have just started a feasibility study to extend our railways. I'm sure people will have heard of this. We're looking at extending the railway from Ryde to Newport and from Shanklin to Ventnor. Whether that's possible or not, hopefully the feasibility study will tell us that and make significant recommendations. But as I say, it is only a feasibility study, so you know we're not all going to jump on the train at Ryde and shoot off to Ventnor any day now. It will be a while. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. I'm glad you mentioned the railway example, because again, that's quite a significant investment that's going on with Island Line, and you're aware of that. So thank you very much. Can I invite Councillor Brading now?
Thank you, Leader.
I'll let you know when you're live. You're live now.
Just like to start with, and I think Councillor Pease obviously needs a bit more added to his portfolio. He obviously hasn't got enough to do. So comprehensive updates. Just some very quick things for me, really. The winter grant scheme that we announced just before Christmas, our Connect for Communities, has done what it was designed to do. All schools have got the funding in place for the free school meals and extended free school meals population for February half term. They also had enough additional discretionary funding needed to make sure that the fund has met its purpose. The grant pots that we put in place, we spent, to be exact, £101,309.90 in 21 different grants. So there's still the best part of £43,500 in the grant pot. So I encourage any members on the call, community groups out there, there is still a grant pot of available funding that can be applied for through our Connect for Communities grant system. Just want to talk about laptops. This figure obviously changes on a regular basis, but the government has so far supplied 1,543 laptops to the Isle of Wight that have gone to schools to help pupils studying from home. They've also given extra data, free data in some instances, and dongles, whatever a dongle is. But I'm also really grateful to a lot of the communities, individuals that have contacted me. I'll give you loads of examples where an individual has contacted me with a spare laptop. I put them in touch with a local primary school, and those laptops have been supplied. There's obviously bigger community efforts going on. Newport actually starting to do something in the Newport area as well to supplement what the government is actually doing for us. And it's really helping families where there's more than one child studying from home, where obviously they need more devices than they've actually got. And the final was just an announcement, really. The Connect for Communities pot was to cover up to the end of March, basically. On Monday this week, the government told us that we're going to get another 407,660, which will cover holiday activities and food schemes right through for the rest of this year. Further details will come out once we've gone through a process of allocating where it's going to go and who the successful bidders are. So around about the end of February, there'll be more announcements coming out. But that came out this week, another 407,660. Government did promise us further funding after the initial pot expired, and that came out with an announcement on Monday. So that will make sure that free school meals and holiday activities will continue right throughout 2021, which is fantastic news. Thank you.
Paul, thank you very much for, again, another comprehensive update. Much appreciated. Can I call Councillor Claire Modsall now, please? Just wait a few seconds to go live. You're live.
Thank you, Leader. So recently I've concentrated as the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care and Housing Needs. I have covered in detail the challenges faced across the department in the past few months. It's only right that I share with you those considerable challenges. They do continue. As members are aware, this is largely linked to the increased impact of the COVID pandemic and the impact this has on some of our most vulnerable residents. With the 2021 national lockdown, we have seen a continuation of challenges in relation to people needing care and support, the fragility of the care home provision, an increased demand on health and care social care services, and increased demand for support with housing. I want to take this opportunity to reflect specifically on the housing position. 2020 and now 2021 have been challenging years for our housing needs team. The numerous interventions from government, short notice changes in requirements and increases in people needing support have seen a need for our agile and dynamic housing needs team to step up and assume frontline roles. Alongside managing their COVID response, the team have been continuing to deliver their business as usual activity. It is this activity I want to draw fellow Cabinet members' attention to today. In 2019, we as a Cabinet set out a clear vision in relation to homelessness and rough sleeping in our 2019 to 2024 strategy. Our vision was that everyone living on the island has a place that they can call home. This vision has continued to be front and centre in all our activity over the past 12 months. We all know that homelessness devastates lives. It is systemic, it is stubborn, and it causes so many issues for those it affects. It's a really wicked issue. I want to highlight some of the really positive developments in relation to housing and homelessness which have occurred in recent months and which have been designed to support our local communities. A number of new services have been developed to support island residents. The single homelessness pathway has been developed and was launched on the 1st of November 2020. This service is providing targeted support for single people experiencing homelessness by offering a wide range of support and accommodation options. I can confirm since the start of the launch on the 1st of November, 21 people have successfully moved into single homeless pathway accommodation and 11 people have successfully moved on to a place they can call home. I'm especially proud to announce Howard House, which is our new assessment hub for people who are homeless. The hub will be led by our partners, the Salvation Army, and is due to open in a few months' time. Howard House will be the front door for the single homelessness pathway and will provide not only assessment, but also emergency accommodation, dedicated personalised support and life skills training for single homeless people. We have developed support for homeless families in partnership with Southern Housing Group, which is offering not only accommodation but also tailored support to meet the needs of those households. In addition to the developments to our support our homeless citizens, our adult social care and housing needs team have also been focusing on activity which can prevent homelessness. Our community-based services have a very important role to play in preventing homelessness and supporting people to live independently. We have for several years worked closely with Two Saints, Southern Housing Group and the Law Centre, but in accordance with our statutory duties, it was necessary to tender these services in January 2021. Following the tender process, we will launch a new service, the Community Support Homelessness Prevention Service, which will commence from the 1st of April 2021. The new service will ensure that our local residents are supported in the community to resolve their housing needs without the need for formal intervention by statutory housing services. We are grateful to Two Saints, Southern Housing and the Law Centre, who continue to be valued partners as they have provided and continue to provide a first-class service, supporting people to live independently and assisting the council enable those who are in need to reach their goals and find a place to call home. The Adult Social Care and Housing Needs team continue to work hard to ensure that vulnerable island residents are supported. The joining of the Housing Needs team with Adult Social Care has provided the opportunity for much closer working and sharing of skills and expertise across the service to benefit all of our local people. This has been a strength in responding to the global pandemic and also undertaking business as usual activity. I really do need to thank those teams and to everybody else across Adult Social Care. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Very comprehensive again and very informative. Thank you very much. I know Councillor Wayne Whittle next, please. Councillor Whittle.
Is it on me?
No. If you could just flick on it, will be in a second, I'm sure. Ask officers to make sure that happens.
Councillor Whittle, I need to turn it on.
Say again?
I think Councillor Whittle may need to turn his camera on.
Your camera may be off, Wayne. There you are. A few seconds and I'll tell you when you're live. You're now clear to me, but just go live in a few seconds. Bear with us. You're now live, Wayne.
Thank you, Leader. I've got a statement on Ryde Arena to read out first. I'd just like to say I'm very disappointed to have to advise the Cabinet that we have been unable to reach a satisfactory conclusion to the arbitration proceedings with AEW over the reopening of the Ryde Arena. We initiated action on the basis that AEW was in breach of its lease, having failed to use its best endeavours to keep the facility open and operational at all times. This followed its unilateral decision to close the rink in October 2016 and its unwillingness to discuss realistic approaches to reopening the facility before it started to deteriorate and require significant investment to reopen as an ice rink. Our legal advice at the time on the information available was that we had a good case to make to recover the building or have it reopened. However, during the arbitration process, AEW disclosed significant additional information previously unknown to the Council that changed the balance of the legal advice so that our claim would be very unlikely to succeed in court. Much as I and the whole community of Ryde and the Isle of Wight feel wronged and aggrieved by the actions of AEW, we cannot afford to risk further public money pursuing an action we are advised would not be successful. Despite the fact that we are now over 4 years since AEW denied the people of Ryde access to the rink, not forgetting the children of Ryde, we have used the arbitration process to discuss with AEW other plans it might have for bringing the building back into use, which might meet the wishes of the community, especially in its key seafront location. However, it takes two parties to negotiate. For as long as AEW is only interested in siting a supermarket on the site, then there is nothing further to discuss with them. In the discussions that have now ceased, we have made it clear to AEW that the full Council resolution of September 2017 still remains our clear and consistent policy. So until AEW can come up with a credible use for the building, we will not allow AEW to use of the Council's adjacent land for any purposes. They cannot cross our land. For as long as AEW demands either an unrealistic sales price or an equally unrealistic rental value for the building, and disregards the council's position, we can only assume it has no real interest in reopening the building or investing in the area. So, as a council, must now review our position and see whether there are any other alternative strategies we could use to find a pragmatic way of securing a new future for the building with the full support of our community. That's a sad one, Leader. I've got an update on regeneration. The Future of Ireland High Street meeting held in January to help identify the potential barriers and resulting actions to help to be proactive in changing the high street offer in an increasing world of online retail. We had a great turnout and there was a sense of taking a collective action, so we're doing good work on that. Branston Farm work started on site. Employment and housing levelling up to 10 million of LEP and Home England funding there, so it's a good project and it's on a good footing and way forward for the island. The Pear Street toilets, a successful bidder has now been found to purchase the land and provide toilets and a restaurant as identified on the plans, along with the good news that Premier Inn is reopening and will be a real booster for Sandown Seafront. Also, I'm pleased to say that Newport Harbour, the harbour revision order confirmed now and will be before Parliament next week. And if we get a good result there, that will enable the master plan to be promoted to its potential partners and developers. Also, on Nicholson Road, expressions of interest notice for potential partners, and has been very encouraging with this early responses. So even though most of the Regen team are processing business grants, they still have time to continue, Leader, with projects to bring this island forward. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Wayne, and through you, thanks to all your team in the regeneration sector. I think when we look back to the original setup of that and the activities we expected, to hear some of these results have been terrific. I'll move now to Councillor Barry Abraham. I'll let you know when you're live, Barry. You're live now, Barry.
Thank you, Leader. I've got two updates. They're both actually on government consultations. The government consultation on the High Street permitted development changes. As you know, the government consulted on a proposed new permitted development right for the use, change of use from commercial business and service use to residential to create new homes. Given last year's changes to the use class order, the proposal could have significant and perhaps unintended negative impact on our high streets. Whilst directing new homes into the town centres has benefits, the potential to us to have no control in place, making it in our town centres, is troubling. Since our last cabinet meeting and following engagement with members, officers prepared a strong response expressing our concerns, which I signed off and has been now submitted to MHCLG. We shall await the outcome with interest, and that was to make it for wider interest. There was the proposal that any shop could change, would just have the right to change from a shop to a residential property. And if you in your own ward in Chow, the village shop could have with their proposed changes could have just gone for residential, and I know a lot of communities would be very concerned that they could lose their local the local shop. The other one is the consultation on National Model Design Code. At the very end of January, the government also published for consultation proposed changes to national planning policy relating to design and the content of a draft National Model Design Code. As you know, I am wholly supportive of high quality design and will welcome any changes that make it easier for officers to require high quality design. The consultation closes on the 27th of March, and I will speak to officers about the best way to respond. And again, I think that is something to be welcomed, because the council's or planning does get criticised unfairly sometimes for the designs of houses, and I know I'm guilty of criticising the council sometimes when I look at houses or properties. But this hopefully will strengthen the council's hand and make more aesthetically pleasing some of the developments, rather than some of the things that we've seen lately. That's my update, Chairman.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you very much. And again, I would appreciate you extending thanks to the planning team, who are short in numbers anyway, have been working on a whole range of areas and have kept the planning process going, albeit not as fast as we would have done had we not had the pandemic. So thank you very much, Barry, for that report.
I will pass that on.
I'll move now to Councillor Steve Hastings, who covers our heritage and environment, amongst other things. Over to you, Steve. Just wait for the to go live.
Thank you, Leader.
You're live now.
Okay, thank you, Leader. First thing I'm going to report on is in the quarterly performance report, it actually states in there, the subject, it says no updates. Well, I happened to be in a meeting just prior to this meeting with our strategic manager for environment and waste and the director of neighbourhoods, and I can tell you now we do have an update, and that is the Salix Public Sector Decarbonisation Scheme. This council has been granted a 2.6 million through these schemes. That's for the following: that's for Carbon Skills Fund, Project Delivery, Heat Decarbonisation Plan, Capital Works funding awarded to carry out works at 13 sites. This will achieve a net carbon saving of up to 656 tonnes of CO2 annually, and a projected utility saving of approximately £18,670 annually. The bid will also replace the capital investment required for these sites, currently profiled for replacement and repairs to the systems. So some good news there, and a good update, I suggest. This time of year I have to mention green garden waste, Leader. We have a capacity now, as you know, since we brought our new vehicle, and we have a capacity of 10,000. We have nearly half of those, 4,612 on direct debit, and have signed up and ready to go. New and renew subscriptions from previous and new ones, there's 2,633, so 7,245, and we only opened on Tuesday the 2nd of February, and this runs through to 19th of March. So as in the proverbial hot cakes, I would suggest that if you want the subscription, get in quick, because they're going fast. Leader, our energy recovery facility is refractory dry out and steam blow out underway. That's underway. Cold commissioning should be complete in March, and hot commissioning starting end of March, beginning of April. In other words, it's in time, on target, and ready to open in the spring. So that's really good news. And I dug some figures out actually that might be interesting to you, Leader. 2011-12 in landfill, we sent 50% of waste to landfill. Our energy recovery facility, or sending to energy recovery facility, 22% of waste, and recycled and compost 28%. Now in 21, we send landfill 1%. Leader, that's 99% diverted from landfill. And energy recovery facility 43%, so up from 22% to 43%, and our recycling and compost up from 28% to 56%, and the national target is 50%, so we're doing pretty well on that, and that's achieving zero non-essential waste to landfill. Over the COVID period, the household waste recovery centres, the new booking system, we have had 83,188 bookings for Lynn Bottom since 5th of May, 17,090 bookings for Afton Marsh, That's a total of 100,278 bookings to the tip, and all working smoothly with no queues outside. And I've had nothing but good reports and happy people with emails coming to me. I don't know about yourself, Leader, and I think you use it as well, don't you?
Yes, I have to declare an interest as a tipper.
and that's my update for now. Thank you.
Steve, again, thank you very much. I think that our green agenda, which this is a key part of, is reflected in those results. I'm extremely pleased that we're getting the level of garden waste use, because that's income for the island, and the overall picture on all of those items is really good news. No more landfill effectively, which is brilliant. Income being generated by a need for the community because they want to use the service. That's why it's so popular. And I think looking ahead with some of the other projects that you've got underway, we're certainly meeting our island's agenda on green approaches, and I'm pretty pleased about that. And that additional funding is good as well. So,
Leader, I should add one other thing, of course, that these things don't happen by accident. This is the result of a lot of hard work from our very hard-working officers and directors. Yeah. They are really pushing a boat out. So thank you to them.
Thank you. And again, I would like you publicly to extend my thanks to Colin Rowlands and Chris Ashman and all of their team, Tash, everybody who I know are serving the island well. That's the way I'd put it. That's really good. Thank you very much, Steve. I'll go to Brian Tyndall now.
Okay, I'm here.
Just wait a few seconds, Brian, while we go live. Okay, you're live now, Brian.
Thank you very much, Leader. Just to inform you that just very recently we have now received a £1.4 million grant from the government to cover our increased costs for COVID-19. At the moment, we are just obviously looking through the details, and in some future date, we'll be able to say how we're going to implement and how we're going to utilise that money. The second point is, as if we don't know already, the election in May is now going ahead, and the Director of Corporate Services, Claire Shand, has issued details of how this will be managed. Obviously, with COVID, they have to be very, very careful, and they're taking active advice from the government and public health, and there'll be some more details to come in due course. And that is it.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you for clarifying the position. A lot of people are asking about the election. They know it's going ahead now, and I've absolutely no doubt under Claire Shand's leadership, it would be done as absolutely safely as needs to be. And I'll thank all her team in advance, because I can see some long days ahead for them as we get to that level with not only the council election, we've got the town and parish council election and the police and crime commissioner, which is a pretty full-on series of elections. So thank you very much, Brian. And finally, from the team, I move to Councillor Stuart Hutchinson.
Thank you, Leader.
Just to let you know when you go live, Stuart.
Yeah.
You're live now.
Okay, thank you, Leader. Just one point I'd like to make, because people might be hearing from Cabinet members of lots of additional money coming in, and that's to be really welcomed. I'd just like to make the point that much of that money is hypothecated, and the council doesn't have discretion to divert it onto other areas where we locally might see a higher need. So the money comes into the coffers, it supports services across the council as a whole, but it doesn't, we are not able to say we'll divert a bit of that and stop some of the reductions in service in other areas. So I just make that general point. Two elements within my portfolio. One, of course, is the strategic finance, and I've already touched on that, and we will be discussing it at the next full council meeting. So I don't intend to go into any more detail on that. The other element is COVID, the recovery. Now, we reported at the open meeting of the Health and Wellbeing Board all the elements of the economic recovery, and I also gave an update on that to the scrutiny meeting earlier this week, at which I think most of those present on this call were also there. So I would be I'm happy to repeat myself if you wish, but I think we might be already telling people what they know. And the final comment on the COVID recovery strategy is, of course, as you know, we had an open meeting this morning of the COVID local outbreak recovery board, and we were given detailed information by our Director of Public Health, Simon Bryant, on that. So that's generally good news on that front. I think there's not a lot of detail I need to add to those things which are already in the public domain, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart. That's excellent, and I'll just wait till I'm live again just to cover a couple of other points. Just to announce to Cabinet and to those listening, I chaired the appointment panel for a new independent review panel, as present was the monitoring officer and our legal officers, and that detail will be submitted to the full council on the 24th of September. And on behalf of the island also, I have been involved with the Southern Local Enterprise Partnership and the 5 leaders, that is Bournemouth, Hampshire, Portsmouth, Southampton and ourselves. And there's a Freeport submission now gone in for the Southampton area. The details can be found on the LEP website and may be of interest to the public because this is a new government initiative and the island's part of the team that's been contributing information to that. So I think that brings me to the end of the Cabinet member reports. And I'm now going to ask Councillor Brading if he can just give us a brief update where we are with the forward plan. Few seconds, you'll be live, Councillor. You're live now.
As you said at the beginning, we had a very heavy agenda this evening. We've had 6 items, but they've all been covered off, and one, of course, goes forward to full council. There are only 2 delegated decisions on forward plan. Both happen to be mine. One's already been done. The other one, I'm confident, will be done on time. The reason I said heavy agenda is for next month, March, being the last cabinet meeting before we go into Pear, there are a minimum of 7 heavy agenda items. So I just asked cabinet members to make sure that we're fully on top of that, because next month is particularly our heaviest cabinet meeting in this administration. So, but everything is on track to be done. The next month will be a particularly heavy meeting for us to get through as our last one. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Paul. That's good news to know. A final item on the agenda is members' questions. And I only have one submitted question from members, which was from Councillor Love. I'll read the question and then I'll give him the response. It says, will Councillor Stewart confirm that he has received written proposals and documentation offering support, advice and guidance in helping Isle of Wight Council resolve the operational issues of the floating bridge from John Springate of 3S, and that the information has been made widely available to all county councillors and officers? What action has the administration taken in response? Bear with me, reading is a bit clear. Response to such specific recommendations, and when can we expect an announcement from the administration that the Isle of Wight Council has written plan of action to replace the floating bridge 6 with floating bridge 7? So that's the question, and the response is as follows. First of all, I can confirm that I have received written proposals from Mr. Springate. I cannot progress any further actions in relation to that matter until the current legal contract mediation process has been concluded. And to Councillor Love's information, a number of options will be put forward at the appropriate time and so his presumption of one option may and may not be correct. So I thank him for his question. I've given him his answer, which I'm grateful to do. I don't have any other member questions. I'm just going to check with the Chief Executive that I've not missed anything. If he's there. Are you there, Chief Exec?
Apologies, Chairman, I'm here, and no, you have come to the end of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On that basis, I thank everybody for listening in, and I close the meeting.
Good evening, Chair.
Good night, bye.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you.